chosen ones. There is a reason your reflection sometimes feels like a stranger watching you from the other side. A reason the silence deepens when your eyes meet your own. For 12 shamans from 12 forgotten tribes, scattered across jungles, deserts, and icy plateaus, gathered in secrecy when your energy rippled through the fabric of the earth. They didn't need coordinates. They didn't need your name. All they needed was to look into your eyes. And when they did, they saw him, not a god, not a myth, not even a spirit in the way religions describe. They saw you, the eternal being who once walked among stars, cloaked in mortal skin. One shaman dropped his staff. Another wept uncontrollably. A third tore the sacred necklace from around her neck and cast it into fire. Why? Because each of them saw something different, and yet the same. A being outside linear time, returning at the exact moment prophesied across 12 ancient timelines. They didn't expect your eyes to hold the echo of thunder that destroyed Babylon, or the stillness that hovered over the waters before light was spoken. They saw you not as you are, but as you were, and as you will be. Each shaman spoke in their own tongue, but the meaning was unified. He has returned. Do you think it's coincidence that you've been feeling watched lately? That mirrors catch light when you're alone? That animals pause as if recognizing a force older than breath? The shamans didn't just look into you, they looked through you, and what they saw staring back was something mankind buried beneath fear, control, and false history. Some called it the sleeping god, others the cosmic mirror. A few whispered of the last light, prophesied to awaken during the final rotation of the grand cycle. And now, the pattern is broken. The earth is responding. The elders have lit the fire circles. Time itself is bending. But here's what they didn't tell you, chosen one. The being they saw in your gaze isn't returning. It began without warning. No messenger, no trumpet. Just a wind that whispered across 12 regions simultaneously. The shamans felt it. In Peru, a fire crackled out of rhythm. In Siberia, the bones cast in divination shattered without being touched. In the Australian outback, a didgeridoo gave off a note it had never produced before. That's how they knew. Something ancient had moved. Something they had sworn an oath to find when it rose again. Without communication, without plan, they each began a solitary journey to the same place, guided by dreams, symbols, and something older than memory. None of them questioned the pull. None of them feared what they would face. They had all seen glimpses in trance, a face veiled by light, eyes filled with galaxies, the shape of a being neither fully human nor fully divine. The Council of 12, as they had been called in whispers, reassembled beneath the same blood-red sky where their ancestors once met when Atlantis fell. The land they stood upon was not marked on any map. No satellites passed overhead. The earth hummed beneath them, as if it remembered their footsteps from another age. Each shaman carried a single object, a relic tied to their lineage, a stone etched with forbidden script, a vial of tears from a weeping ceremony held before the Great Flood, a mask carved from a tree that no longer exists. They arranged themselves in a circle, placed the relics in the center, and waited. That's when the fire lit itself. No hands, no spark, just flame, blue and trembling, as if unsure of the moment. The wind circled them, not harsh, but precise, like fingers turning pages of a sacred book. And then the image came. Not a vision in the fire, not a hallucination, but a shared knowing. They saw eyes, yours, looking directly at them, ageless, filled with sorrow and fury. A being who had once stood at the center of the world when time was born, and who now walked the earth again. One shaman collapsed to his knees. Another began to speak in a language that hadn't been heard in 5,000 years. None of them moved to stop it. They all recognized what had returned, but none of them understood why it had chosen now, or why it had chosen you. You always felt it, didn't you? That quiet dissonance beneath reality's surface. That strange delay between your thoughts and the world's response. People spoke to you with familiarity, yet you remained a mystery to yourself. Like a song you once knew in another lifetime, now muffled behind layers of noise. The shamans didn't need your name to find you. They were guided by the residue you left in the ether. Moments when the veil thinned around you. A photo where your eyes glowed unnaturally. A dream a stranger had that matched your exact birthmark. A shadow that followed your footsteps, not behind you, but beside you. These fragments told them the truth. Your soul had been hidden in plain sight. One of the 12, an elder from the Himalayan passes, described what he saw when he meditated upon your image. He said the light surrounding you didn't emanate, it contained. A light that bent space instead of filling it. A soul sealed with purpose, locked away until the age of forgetting reached its climax. They whispered of a code that could only be deciphered through eyes that remembered eternity. Yours did. Not just one lifetime, many. You've carried names in Babylon, Jerusalem, Tikal, and Kemet. You've spoken tongues now considered extinct. You've wept for wars before history began. And yet, they say the soul never breaks, it only forgets. That's why they were afraid. Because yours had started to remember. One shaman, a desert oracle, compared your reawakening to a parable passed down in secret. The story of the boy from Nazareth who was once lost and found teaching in the temple. Not because he learned too much, but because something within him recognized the scrolls. He didn't read them, he recalled them. And when the elders questioned him, they were not met with arrogance, but reflection. So too with you. But your scrolls are buried within flesh. Your temple is your memory. And the time for subtle signs is ending. The world is watching you now, not because you are loud, but because something quiet in you has started to shake the heavens. It wasn't the first time they'd seen a being return, but it was the first time they felt time collapse in its presence. When the 12 sat in stillness, and your image appeared between them, not as a face on fire, nor a whisper in the smoke, but as a reflection rippling across all their minds. The effect was immediate. One of them gasped as if submerged underwater. Another clutched his chest, not in pain, but in awe. Your reflection didn't show your current body. It showed your essence, the ancient echo of who you truly are. That's what caught them off guard. They expected a return. They didn't expect the returner to still be unaware of themselves. In one account, a shaman from the ruins of Zimbabwe spoke of a great mirror, a ceremonial obsidian disc once used to peer into the soul. He claimed your reflection cracked the surface of his memory before he even looked into it. His vision went white, then black, then gold. And in that flash, he saw the same face mirrored across epochs: kings, wanderers, slaves, prophets, and strangers, all with the same eyes, your eyes, the only constant across shifting bodies. It wasn't beauty that stunned them. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Recognition of a presence buried so deeply within the human mythos that its reappearance disrupts the foundations of memory. They had no language for what you are. Not truly. Every culture tried. Some called it the origin flame. Others whispered of the star that fell sideways. But all failed to name what has no beginning. And here you are, walking, breathing, doubting, trying to make sense of dreams that don't feel like dreams, not realizing the people around you are reacting to something they don't understand. You've seen the shift, haven't you? How some grow nervous near you, how others are drawn in without knowing why. That's the reflection at work. Not just physical, but spiritual distortion. You are the mirror, and they are catching glimpses of themselves through you. That's what terrified the 12. Because when they saw you, truly saw you, they didn't just see the past. They saw something ancient waking up in the present. The shamans didn't speak of you as if you were new. They spoke as if you had returned from exile. Not from a place, but from awareness. One of them, a mystic from the deep Amazon, trembled when describing what he saw: a being who once walked beside the architects of creation, not a god, but something older, not a servant of the divine, but one who whispered to the divine before form had breath. He said your soul held the memory of stars before they burned, and of laws before they were broken. They spoke carefully, with reverence and fear, like someone approaching a dormant volcano, because every detail from their visions pointed to a truth they couldn't escape. The being who once walked among gods had returned, hidden within you. They saw you standing in ancient halls where time moved in spirals, not lines. They saw your voice shaping harmonics that bent reality. They saw other beings, luminous and terrible, bow their heads in your presence, not out of submission, but recognition. The mystic compared your presence to a concept found in forbidden scrolls: the Aleph Elohe, the one before many. A spark that once danced between chaos and order. He paused before saying it. Then he whispered, Yeshua knew of this being. He hinted at it when he said before Abraham was, I am. That was not ego. That was memory. You were not there to dominate. You were there to balance the architecture. When certain forces fractured the harmony of dimensions, you intervened. But your intervention was not violence. It was presence. And it is that same presence now radiating through your being, reshaping fields of probability, realigning timelines. The gods you once stood beside have long faded or hidden themselves, but you returned, in flesh, in silence. You were born not to destroy the world, but to remind it. The day the shamans gathered, the wind changed direction in 12 regions at once. Storms formed over deserts that hadn't seen rain in years. Birds flew in spirals before scattering. In one village, a woman woke, screaming after a dream in which your name was etched into the moon. The signs were unmissable, but what no one noticed were the salt circles appearing near ancient ceremonial grounds, unbroken, precise, and glowing faintly when touched by moonlight. They weren't drawn by hand. they weren't left by any tribe. They manifested like the earth was remembering something buried within itself. Salt, the element of preservation, the purifier, the container of sacred frequencies. Across civilizations, it has been used to ward off spirits, cleanse ritual space, and seal the edges of energy portals. Yet these salt circles weren't meant to protect against you. They were formed to contain the moment when your energy signature surged and reality bent in your direction. The shamans didn't create them. The earth did. It was a signal. Something had awakened that hadn't stirred since the fall of the last age. Thunder followed each circle, not lightning, just rolling, low vibrations across the sky that sounded less like storms and more like a deep, celestial drumbeat. Those attuned to the old ways knew what it meant. The veil was thinning, and the being marked by salt and sound was walking in human skin again. Animals avoided the circles. Children stood beside them and whispered languages their parents didn't teach. In one remote area, a young girl stepped into one and collapsed, claiming she saw the eye that sees backward. Hours later, she drew your face, not your current one, but the one from before the flood, before the sky split, and all the while you were unaware. You felt the headaches, the chills, the way certain places made your skin tingle, but you didn't yet realize those were activations. You thought it was stress, but the earth knew. The sky responded, and the salt whispered in silence. You haven't stepped into one of those circles yet. Around the 7th hour of vigil, as the 12 encircled the relics and the vision of your presence thickened like mist, one of the shamans broke the silence. His voice trembled as if something was pushing through it. He wasn't speaking in his native tongue nor in any known language. It was something older, a frequency given form. The others turned toward him, but no one interrupted. They all felt it. The moment had arrived. He uttered a name. Not yours, but a name connected to your awakening. One the elders of his tribe had buried in layered chants and sealed inside stone. A name spoken only once before. And that time, the sky wept blood. It wasn't just a sound. It was a code, a sequence of tones that, when voiced aloud, pierced the veil's separating dimensions. One shaman gasped, another fell back as if struck, but it was the light that followed which confirmed everything. The fire in the center pulsed white, then silver, then blue, and for a breathless moment, the image of your former self stood there, cloaked in something neither flesh nor spirit. The name echoed outward, into the earth, into the dream world, into time itself. And across that ripple, some heard a whisper, "He has returned," but does not yet know his name. The one who spoke it fell unconscious. When he woke, he told the others he had seen a man standing at the edge of a desert, wearing nothing but humility and power. "He looked like us," he said, but the stars followed him. He spoke of a scar that wasn't a wound, a glow that didn't cast shadows. And then he whispered again, "I saw him, the one who walked in the dust and still made the world tremble." The others understood, because there was another who once carried such a name, a carpenter who bent the laws of reality without breaking them, who turned death into illusion, who said to the storm, "Peace, be still," and the wind obeyed. He had hinted at this moment, when another would rise, not to replace him, but to fulfill a continuation hidden from time. You were born into noise, systems, distractions, a web of rituals designed to keep you looking outward. From the moment you arrived, the world began weaving a story around you, one where you were small, uncertain, and breakable. But underneath it all, your memory pulsed like a quiet drum. It came to you in dreams that felt too vivid to be fiction, in déjà vu that felt like a scream buried in velvet, in moments where strangers paused, eyes wide, sensing something they couldn't name. You weren't supposed to remember, and yet you did, in fragments, in flashes, in feelings you couldn't explain. The shamans knew this would happen. They warned it couldn't be stopped, not forever. When a soul of your origin enters the human realm, the forgetting is temporary. The body forgets, but the field, your spiritual architecture, never truly sleeps. It only waits for the right frequency to reawaken. That's why the signs intensified around you. That's why the natural world began responding before you even realized who you are. One of the elders described it as a river frozen at the surface but raging beneath. He said your memory is not like others. It's layered, multidimensional. You do not just remember lifetimes. You remember timelines, versions of Earth that never made it into the current loop. You've seen events that haven't happened, and some that will never happen again. And that knowing terrifies those who control perception. That's why your awakening had to be interfered with. Your schools taught you to memorize, not remember. Your culture trained you to consume, not contemplate. But still, the moments broke through. The day you stood in nature and felt the sky watching you. The night you heard your name called in a voice that didn't come from a person. The moment your tears fell for a war you never fought in, but your soul had. You've tried to ignore it, to normalize. But the mirror won't let you. The fire won't stay still. The ancestors won't go silent. They said he defied the laws of nature, that he stilled storms with his voice and opened blind eyes with mud. But the shamans knew the truth went deeper. Yeshua didn't break the laws. He revealed the higher ones. He walked on water because he remembered its true name. He bent time because he knew it wasn't linear. His miracles weren't acts of power. They were echoes of memory. And now, the same memory stirs within you, but yours feels different. Not softer, not gentler, older. As if forged before mercy had a name. You don't walk on water, you set it boiling. The elements respond to you not with reverence, but recognition. Fire flickers erratically when you're near. Wind carries words you didn't speak. Electronics misbehave, sensing a current that wasn't programmed. The shamans called it the breath of the ancient ones, a power dormant since the fall of the first gate. One of them, a blind seer whose eyes had been covered since childhood, removed her veil the night your energy reached her. She looked into nothing and saw you. She said, "He breathes fire, not from mouth, from memory. His presence burns away what is not real." That was the moment the others began to fear the timeline they were standing in. Because you are not here to perform parlor tricks. You are not here to save or punish. You are a trigger, a catalyst hidden in plain sight. And your fire isn't destruction, it's recalibration. The kind that melts false constructs, the kind that forces what's fake to flee. That's why systems are glitching around you. That's why people are either drawn or disturbed. The soul recognizes what the mind cannot. Yeshua once said, "I came to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled." You've seen it in old photos. Shadows falling differently on that side of your face. A faint discoloration that deepens under moonlight. Some called it a freckle, others a birthmark. But the shamans knew better. They called it the echo. Not just a mark, a seal, etched into your flesh before this incarnation, placed deliberately beneath your left eye, because that's where the soul's memory leaks first. In ancient diagrams of celestial beings, that spot is always illuminated, always watched. That's where the oldest codes were hidden. When the 12 beheld your reflection, they all noticed it, pulsing, glowing faintly beneath the skin. The elder from the steps whispered, "It's not pigment, it's language." He wasn't speaking metaphorically. Some claimed to see characters in it, scripts lost to the fires of Alexandria. Others said it looked like a tiny constellation rearranged, but none could deny the way it responded. When your heart rate increased, it shimmered. When truth was spoken in your presence, it warmed. When lies were told, it darkened, just slightly. You thought it was just part of your body, something random. You never questioned why it drew the gaze of strangers, why certain spiritual people seemed fixated on your face. But it wasn't about beauty, it was about memory. That mark is older than your name, older than your ancestors. It is not a sign of identity. It is a beacon. Some texts say the left eye is the eye of the moon, the place where reflection and inner sight reside. But deeper scrolls, the ones buried in stone, say something else, that the left eye marks the ones who walk between lifetimes fully aware. And even if you've forgotten, the mark remembers. It's not just symbolic, it's a keyhole. And recently, something has started turning inside it. You've felt the pulses in your sleep, the heat behind your cheekbone, the flickers of light when you close your eyes too fast. That's not imagination. That's the seal beginning to lift. The eye beneath the eye starting to see again. When the 12 shamans returned to their homelands, they carried silence with them. Not ignorance, reverence. For once, you were seen, fully and without filter. There was no language left that could hold the weight of what they witnessed. They didn't just see a person, they saw a convergence, a celestial recursion dressed in flesh. You, not as a figure of prophecy, but as the prophecy itself, living, moving, remembering. They tried to tell others, but their voices faltered, not out of fear, but because what they'd seen had no parallel. You had looked at them, and time had bent. Memory, both theirs and yours, unraveled and rewove in seconds. One described it as standing in front of a being whose gaze held every beginning and every ending at once. "He didn't look through me," the shaman whispered. "He looked into me, and I saw myself differently afterward. Because when people look at you now, it isn't just you they see, it's what stands behind you, what awakens through you. That's why those closest to you have changed. Some grew cold, others obsessed. A few disappeared. They don't know why, but their spirits do. Because your presence triggers recalibration. It acts like a mirror laced with ancient light, the kind that doesn't show surface, only essence. There's no going back from that kind of seeing. Once the soul recognizes the original frequency, it either aligns or runs. And this is why they tried to hide you, why systems were built to convince you that you're ordinary, to make you fear your reflection, to bury your memory beneath dogma, distractions, and digital static. But it's failing, because every time someone looks at you and feels their breath catch, they remember. Every time your name is spoken in sacred places without you being there, they're calling what you carry. Every time someone dreams of you before they meet you, the veil thins. The shamans knew this. That's why they gathered. Not to protect the world from you, but to prepare it for what happens after the world sees you clearly.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.